everyone, and welcome to another episode of Spirit Talks. I am your host, the Hermit Tarot. You can call me Lorraine. We're going to have a fairly informal episode today, just kind of catching up. We're in a beautiful location at the top of one of the peaks of Mount Whitfield here in Cairns, the shortest peak, second shortest peak. It's a pretty long walk if you're a Cairns local. I know some of you are. So we've just legged it up the first hill, and we are on Gimoy Wallabara Yidinji land today, fairly close to Kukuyulanji land in terms of traditional owners. They're just a little bit north of us that way. We're still in Cairns City, so this is the Gimoy Wallabara Yidinji land. It is a pleasure and a privilege to be shooting in this location. I also have my doggo with me. We've got Xander Digital behind the cameras. If you do see a little four-legged furry creature running through the grass, it will be my dog Yoda. We're going to hope that he doesn't interfere too much and that he's speaking of the devil, I just jinxed myself, and that he's able to just chill and calm down after our little walk. What was I going to say? So today's podcast episode is inspired by recent events when it comes to social media. So in my last episode, I have actually for the last two episodes since rebooting Spirit Talks, I have been talking a lot about the harmful impacts of social media. So I kind of decided in today's episode to explore whether social media is a helpful tool, whether it's something that can actually add to your lifestyle, to your mindset, to your mentality in terms of your well-being as well, your emotional well-being, and your ideas of self-development. There's so much content out there, especially on the platforms where you can I think every platform now has a short video format where you have reels or shorts or TikToks, and they can range as short as like a couple of seconds to a couple of minutes. So I recently rejoined TikTok from a Hermit Tarot standpoint. I used to have a personal TikTok page back when it was Musical.ly, and in Australia there's been some controversy with TikTok. I think there's controversy with TikTok in a lot of countries, especially the US. But in Australia, they're very against using TikTok in government buildings. So I think it's actually been banned in a lot of government buildings in Australia, especially in our capital city, Canberra. And for some reason that sparked my curiosity and made me want to go back on there and just have a look at the type of content that the algorithm would feed me from a new platform, from a new account, and not from just my personal account. So I've got some videos saved, and I have some reels saved as well on Instagram. I don't think you can save videos on YouTube, which is really frustrating because there are some good shorts on there, but we'll go through them. I'll be sharing my thoughts and we'll be sharing the videos with you. And it is a discussion, as always. Nobody pretends to be experts here on Spirit Talks. So my opinion is mine, and I don't want that to persuade you. I want it to spark a conversation. So if your opinion differs, and I hope it does, please comment down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, send me a feedback form. If you're listening to this on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, or Deezer, and by all means, let's keep the conversation going. Now, before we do get deep into that, I did just want to do like a quick little life update, because that part is probably going to take up the whole part of this podcast. And I realized that something that's been missing from the Spirit Talks podcast is a continual flow of keeping you, the viewers and the listeners, updated on what is going on with me as a host and with some of our guests who will be reoccurring. So I do anticipate being able to have more guests on in the future who will be making more than one appearance. And I think it would be a good idea just to check in with them, see how they are, what they've been up to, and in hopes of being very candid, very honest, very transparent about the struggles as well as the successes. So for me personally, I'm probably the most continual face you'll see on this podcast, or you'll hear in terms of a voice. Things have been very interesting, and I want to share this because I think that this is a collective energy at the moment. when we look back at around November last year, I feel like I was in a full sort of seeker mode where I wasn't going to be able to grow anymore unless I was to expose myself to experiences that were very out of my comfort zone. And that did start earlier in the year. I climbed one of the local mountains known as the Walsh's Pyramid here in Cairns in August last year, and that was a lifetime goal. That was something that I was hoping to be able to do ever since I was a little girl and I first saw that pyramid, that mountain. And doing that really kind of physically showed myself that I am capable of a lot more than just material success. So I decided that an area of my life that hasn't been growing as much as I want it to is, like many of you, my love life. And towards the end of last year, I threw myself into the uncomfortable realm of online dating. And I wanted to share this because I know that a lot of you are in a similar boat. I get like a lot of messages about this all the time, especially from viewers who have been with me for a few years now. So a lot of the online dating kind of only offers you a glimpse at a person's personality, I want to argue, as well as what they may be looking for, as well as who they may be in general and how compatible they may be to you. So for me personally, being in that space as someone who is fairly intuitive and empathetic, it was the most desensitizing experience that I've had in a very long time. I kind of went from feeling like I knew myself really, really well and that I knew what I was looking for and I knew kind of the type of people that would be attracted to me, to really realizing that I don't know anything. It was a humbling experience, to say the least, and it exposed me to a whole different kettle of fish, as we say in Australia, in terms of a whole realm of new people, new experiences, and I have absolutely no regrets. But at the time, it felt incredibly regressive. I felt very conflicted, and I felt like I was almost doing myself a disservice after having worked on myself for years and years and years. Putting myself on a platform like Tinder felt like I was regressing, and I was reducing my worth to a lesser version of what I am now. And that was like a mentality that I had to overcome in order to get the most out of that experience. Instead, I confirmed a lot of what I already know about myself, and I had the opportunity to grow even more because I was testing who I am in a new environment, and I was being given the chance to really mingle with a different demographic of people than I would have usually encountered. Like, I'm somebody that works from home. I'm very selective with my energy. The chances of me organically getting that experience, had I not pushed myself out of my comfort zone, would have been very minimal, very small. So I didn't gain the lifelong relationship from that experience, but I didn't think I was going to either, to be honest with you. I didn't think I was going to be an exception. I thought I was going to be the rule. And the rule with Tinder and a lot of the platforms is you kind of go out there to try your luck, but more often than not, it is like a hookup sort of app, and that those apps do perpetuate hookup culture to the extent of they don't really have a high success rate. And I'm probably generalizing. There'll always be that one person who's like, oh, but my best friend married their Tinder date, and my best friend, and yes, those cases do happen, but they're definitely exceptions, not the rules. So what that whole experience in hindsight, and I wasn't really able to understand this at the time because my guidance from my spiritual team was to just be present and was to just have fun and was to make sure that I'm not hurting anybody as well as myself. So I did just that. I didn't think too far into it. I didn't read too far into it. But now looking back, I'm realizing that those experiences really set me up to continue to push myself outside of my comfort zone, to be more aware of qualities and traits within myself that aren't going to just manifest organically. They do need to be forced out in some extreme situations, in some uncomfortable situations, and in situations where doing the same thing over and over and over again isn't going to help us understand that side of ourselves. So from that mindset of recognizing that I can thrive out of my comfort zone and I can still stay connected to who I am while also adapting new skills and new traits, because I learned a lot about myself by meeting those people. I learned that I'm someone who loves talking. I mean, I think having a podcast, that was not surprising for a lot of you. And those who know me as the Hermit Tarot, I talk a lot, so you probably don't feel surprised by that. But I always thought I was a very introverted person, someone who doesn't like talking. But I'm actually a very bubbly person under the right circumstances, and I love meeting new people. I love learning about people. I love getting the chance to understand who somebody is, and I love talking about a person's interests, not just their job, not just their schooling, not just their career, not just what their family does, but who they are, what they're interested in, and where they come from and where they're going. And I got the chance to do that. So it was a beautiful way of pushing me out of my comfort zone, and it set me up to be able to achieve my earlier successes in this year. So where we're at now is 2023. I am officially a homeowner. And it was a process that was on my goals list for at least 3 years. Before I started the Hermit Tarot, I was anticipating saving for a home, having a deposit, etc. And it's not that I didn't think it was achievable, I just knew that I had to work hard to get there. And so I did kind of put it on the back burner a little bit, and I was just kind of focused on surviving at times and then thriving in other ways. My focus since being the Hermit Tarot has never been on physical success. At times when I do have my bougie side come out, because I am a Capricorn sun and a Taurus moon, my form of self-care is sometimes buying a bougie something, a bougie bag or a bougie perfume. And when I would do that, I'd be very quickly humbled towards the importance of the other Venusian traits within my moon, which are looking after myself from the inside out and really putting effort into who I want to be outside of all of the accolades or the physical things that you can obtain. And so the last couple of years, it was kind of like one of those goals that you put on the back burner. You know, it's not one that you wake up every day and you say to yourself in front of the mirror. It was one of those goals that I had at the back of my mind, and it was something that I was subconsciously aware of whenever I would make any financial decisions. It would be about, well, does this fall in line with that long-term goal of buying a house? And so after everything kind of transpired in late 2022, and I realized that in many cases I was lessening my worth to be able to make room for these people who probably were just temporary. They were there for the experiences. They weren't there for the long time. They weren't there for They were there for a good time, not a long time. I kind of got back onto my grind, and I was like, this is fun, but I need to start thinking about what my next sense of achievement is. I've achieved a closer sense to self, and I've unlocked a new personality trait, kind of like a character trait. I felt like I was playing a game with myself really at that time of my life. So I started tackling this material objective that I had, and I really focused on my core beliefs of spirituality, which is surrendering, and that a healthy way of manifesting the best possible outcome is to do everything that you can and surrender what you cannot. And that's what I've done this whole time, and thankfully have been able to buy my dream home, which I didn't think was possible, in my hometown. And that's a whole story within itself, because about 5 years ago, I moved back to my hometown with literally $500 to my name. I had no qualifications that would be able to get me a significant job here in Australia. And I pretty much was relying on the fact that starting over was the best thing for me at that point in my life. And 5 years later, I'm able to finally buy a home, and I have a business in my hometown. So it all feels very, very surreal, and I'm incredibly grateful to be here. But that's where we're at, and those are some recent events that have been happening for me behind the scenes. If you have any questions about the whole home buying process or anything of that, because I feel like I didn't really focus on that much, please let me know and I'll talk about it. But I don't really want to waste more time. I do want to get into what we're here to talk about today. So let's start with some TikToks, shall we? Goodness. TikTok. First of all, my experience with TikTok has been fairly positive. Like, to completely generalize, there are obviously parts of the app that aren't going to resonate with a lot of people, but the algorithm is spookily on point. It will just force feed me content that I can scroll and interact with for hours. And I would say that I'm a fairly interactive person on the app too. Like, I'm someone who will like, comment, and save. Maybe not comment, but I do like and I do save a lot of videos, and I'll comment on things that genuinely resonate too. So looking back, I think this one is the first one we want to look at.
I keep seeing all these TikToks about saying if you're depressed, move to Australia. And just like, take it from me.
No, that's not the one. Sauce. Here. This one.
Just came across something and I wanted to share it on here quickly. It said, an environment that is not safe to disagree in is an environment that's not focused on growth. It's an environment focused on control. Just came across something and I wanted to share it on here.
I do need to listen to that twice. The caption on this says you're going to want to listen to this twice. It was posted by Mrs. Winderley on the 20th of April.
It said, an environment that is not safe to disagree in is an environment that's not focused on growth.
Wow, it's focused on control. Now, I found this incredibly powerful, and the search term that comes up with this video is gaslighting, but it's very powerful because it highlights the fact that a part of being human and a part of developing, whether you're a child who's learning or whether you are an adult who's trying to rewrite a lot of your code and your makeup in terms of the conditionings and teachings of when you were younger or the trauma that was inflicted upon you. You can't effectively evolve without making mistakes. And she highlights the importance of being in an environment that can nurture mistakes, that doesn't try to control you to be a certain way, that gives you the freedom and the dignity to make those risky choices for yourself. And for some reason, this little TikTok that only goes for probably 15 seconds hit me so hard. I remember, like, this is the TikTok that actually sparked my idea for this whole podcast. I was like, oh, let's see if we can find some more gems. We're going to scroll up. This one looks like it could be our Jordan Peterson.
You know, one of the things that people might want to know who are listening is that if you have a memory that's older than about 18 months and it haunts you, and when it comes up involuntarily, it produces a stress reaction. What that means is that as far as your nervous system is concerned, and so as far as your body's concerned, that danger hasn't gone away.
Wow.
And what's happening is an unconscious alarm system that's looking for pitfalls and holes is warning you that the map that you're using is incomplete in a manner that might enable you to fall into the same hole. And so one of the things that people can do that's very useful is, if you have memories like that that plague you, is to bring them to mind voluntarily instead of waiting for them to come after you involuntarily, and then to think through what has changed and what might not have, but also to come up with a plan so that if a similar circumstance arose, you'd be in a better position in one way or another to deal with it. You know,
wow, that's amazing. I think Jordan Peterson is quite controversial for like a lot of different reasons, but I feel like this TikTok highlights how he comes from the psychological point of view. And interestingly enough, him as a person, like, I don't have a lot to say about that because we're not evaluating him, but what he says has this beautiful, at least what I see in terms of what he says, the sound bites that often get shared and that do go viral have this beautiful interweb of being both psychological and science-based, but to a degree spiritual as well. And I think that a lot of the clips that I see of Jordan Peterson seem to really highlight the synergy between those two. You can't technically have one fully functioning without the other. And I think that the complexity of it is when people make out like spirituality is completely hoodoo voodoo and it's unachievable and it's unbelievable and it has to be linked to some pretty far out there belief system or religious sort of institution. And so it becomes less achievable and it becomes more of a system again that controls you. But this sound and this sort of TikTok that I just happened to stumble upon definitely highlights how a lot of our triggers and a lot of the things that we do experience or that we do think about are there to remind us of parts of ourselves that need to be further healed. And it's a beautiful analytical way for those who are more right-brained than left-brained to highlight that healing is non-linear. These things will re-trigger us and they will almost re-traumatize us sometimes to a certain degree. Maybe not as dramatically as it first occurred, but there's almost a shadow of that pain there in a way where we're being shown what we need to continue to work on. And we have the choice then to decide whether we're going to make this a part of our personality. Is this pain going to move forward with us in terms of, are we going to turn it from something that can be changeable into an immovable object, a stone that we carry? Do we really want that to be who we are, basically? I think pain is a symptom of something that needs to be addressed. And that's an interesting way. If you have a memory that is 18 months old or older, and when you think about it, it still induces feelings of stress, then it is clearly your body associating an immediate danger to that situation. And that's a sign that you may be carrying things with you that are quite harmful or that have the potential to really limit your ability to experience some of the more enjoyable emotions and experiences in life. So anyway, I feel like I've over-explained what he's explained, so we're going to keep moving forward. So I just had a quick water break, but we're going to have a look at another TikTok where the thumbnail says, what if it's protection, not rejection? And we talk about this a lot. I think this is a term that a lot of readers now use. Sometimes rejection is divine protection. So let's have a look at that.
I don't know who needs to hear this right now, but here it goes. God reduced your circle because he heard conversations that you did not.
Ooh.
I don't know who needs to hear this right now.
We don't need to listen to that twice. God reduced your circle because he heard conversations that you did not. And that is a beautiful way of saying rejection, in whatever form it comes in, is divine protection. Whether you believe in God or whether you call it something else. I do think that the universe has a beautiful way of trying to protect us from things that can be harmful to us. But like we know, we always have free will. So if we willingly put ourselves in situations where we can get hurt for the sake of experiencing and being able to evolve and then adapt, we're going to be given that opportunity to be hurt. So I think that this TikTok is good at highlighting how rejection comes in many forms. Sometimes it can be a flat out no, I don't want to see you, I don't want to spend time with you, I'm not interested in furthering things with you. And then other times it can be as simple as, I don't want to invite you to this, or I'm not going to respond to your message. Passive rejection should also be included in that list. And I think from what we're seeing, this form of rejection is more so about that passive rejection, that rejection that comes from us not getting that invitation to that group gathering or that birthday party, not getting that message back from that friend who we thought we were on good terms with. So it's cute. I think that this TikTok is really good for those who aren't very awakened or very spiritual and who just kind of need that extra confirmation and that extra reassurance that sometimes we're being protected rather than rejected. So let's keep moving forward. That's a good, easily digestible TikTok for most of the mainstream, I believe. Let's have a look at this one. So I found this lady recently and I was obsessed. When I tell you obsessed, like, ooh, her energy is infectious and she's quite controversial. I don't know where her ideas come from. She strikes me as someone that's very well traveled, that has had some sort of professional career behind her, because she comes up with some pretty strong opinions, and it comes from what I think is personal experience and this sort of sage wisdom. She's also very, very beautiful, which makes it easy to watch her, but her voice to me is haunting. So let's listen.
You're in a relationship, you are with a guy, but he's losing attraction to you. You can feel it, you can see it, it's visceral, you have instinct, you're a woman, he's losing interest in you. Before you leave him, which is the common advice, because then we'd be leaving everybody all the time. He does this wrong, he sneezes, he loses attraction, we leave them. Instead of that, I want you to do these 2 things first, and then a bonus at the end, okay? Thing number 1, I want you to evaluate yourself first. Have you been stressed, reactive to him? Have you given up your hobbies, started thinking about him more than you think about yourself, thinking about where he is during the day, thinking about where he goes, trying to preempt his needs, trying to mother him by asking him what he's eaten, what he needs to eat, what he needs to do, telling him off about things that he has done, eaten fried food, not worked out, nagged him about taking you out more, nagged him about needing more attention, gone on about the fact that he's losing interest in you, moaned about the fact that he's not sleeping with you, completely put him first, decided to make not yourself happy, but be good at everything in his life and basically be the do-gooder. Are you those things? Those are about 15 things. That's the first thing you're going to do. How many of those things have you done? Second action you're going to take. You're going to throw all those things in the bin. You're not going to do them again. Instead, you're going to focus first on yourself. Every time you think about him, you're going to do something useful for yourself. Drink a green juice, have a coffee, go to the gym, write that book you've been meaning to write, finish your work for your college, whatever it is. Every time you think about him, that's your penance to do something for yourself. You're going to hang out with your friends. You're going to do your hobbies. You're going to get obsessed with the journey that you're on, how you look, what you're doing, where you're going, the college you want to get into, the job you want to get, all those things. If he's not made time with you and you've made time with your friends, you're not going to cancel, my friend. You're not going to cancel. You're going to go ahead and do that thing you were doing with your friends, no matter how much it kills you, okay? That's what you're going to do, because he's not reserved that time with you. You are stop nagging him. You're going to stop telling him what to do. You're going to stop mothering him. You're going to stop all of that. You're going to be almost selfish. It's all about you. You're going to make you happy, and you're going to stop being the good girl. You're going to give it 3 months. You are not going to speak on it 3 months. And then write me. Write me what happens. Last but not least, my 20 feminine energy principles. When you're in your feminine energy, you are magnetic, baby. You are magnetic to men. I've put it on discount. It's in my link in bio. Go get it if you want to. Don't if you don't want to. Those are my 20 feminine energy principles. From start, which is confidence, to the end, which is dating. So do those 2 things, and bonus if you want to. And come back and tell me. Because Mummy knows. Mummy wouldn't lie to you.
Okay, so I think this TikTok is interesting for many different reasons. I find it interesting from a business standpoint. She's got a business strategy behind this TikTok. She's essentially falling into that popular trend of storytelling, where you do story time, and she's kind of sharing an example of, like, is this your situation? Is this what's happening to you? It's quite a relatable example. I think most couples go through this. I don't think it's breaking point for most couples. It's just a point of conversation, but and needing to address some serious issues that are able to work through. You're easily able to work through a lot of those issues with clear communication. But she's also drawing the spiritual idea of tapping into a specific type of energy in order to attract and elicit a response. And that feminine energy principle stems from being able to passively sit in your power of knowing, of nurturing, and of self to attract that action, that masculine energy of somebody wanting to take action towards you, and recognizing the power in you and kind of coming towards you with the action. Where you're passive, they're coming towards you with the masculine energy of action. But anyway, so she's tying in that spiritual concept with a relatable sort of template. And then she's also sharing her own ideas about what you should do, and she's linking it in with her own product that she can offer, which is the 20 feminine disciplines, I think it was. So it's pretty clever. It's incredibly clever from like a creator standpoint, especially if you do go viral, and she's got millions of views on this. And she's has multiple call to actions throughout the video. She's sort of telling people what to do, and then she's inviting them to, after listing some pretty controversial actions of saying you should do this and you should do that, she's inviting them to tell her what you should do back. So from a marketing standpoint, it's a very interactive video. You could either just watch it, but most people are going to want to comment. Most people are going to want to share it and talk about it with people they know. So from that standpoint, it's very, very interesting. Now, from a personal standpoint, in terms of the premise of why we're watching this in the first place, is it helpful? It's definitely something that provokes inner dialogue. So that in itself can be helpful, especially if you are scrolling it between the hours of 11 and way too late to be awake. It should have been your bedtime 5 hours ago. It's probably the kind of content that could stop you from scrolling in a helpful way and make you a little bit more reflective. But if you do find it on a day where you're not looking for that kind of content, you're probably more than likely to just want to scroll past it. So I do think it could be thought-provoking, and it could be helpful in that it is something that offers an inner dialogue of reflection. But I don't think it's something that most people, depending on your individual circumstance, are going to change their life about. So it's one of those things that is definitely more geared towards maximizing this platform for what it is and just trying to get the most out of revenue options as well. But I do rate that creator because she does say some interesting stuff, and I think, again, we can't always agree. That doesn't offer growth. We need to be different. We need to be able to embrace our differences, and we need to be able to use the most out of those differences as well. And sometimes people like that, who provoke conversations, are really good at helping us grow and understand ourselves better. So that's why I like following her myself, because I don't agree with everything she says. Similar to Jordan Peterson, there's some things that he says that I'm like, oh, wait a minute. And then he comes around and I'm like, oh, damn, I can see the logic. And maybe that's just me with my objective Libra North node, but we'll see. I think there's one more TikTok, and then I'm going to jump over to, what's the other platform? Instagram. Actually, there might be two. This one says, how to make someone fall in love with you using psychology. Use wisely.
How to make somebody fall in love with you using psychology.
Number 2. I can't make anybody fall in love with anybody else.
Ooh.
In 1977, Dr. Arthur Aaron conducted a study where he took a man and a woman, 2 complete strangers, and had them answer 36 questions back and forth to each other, and then do something else that I'll explain later. These people were complete strangers. They got married 6 months later. Questions are divided into 3 sections, and each one gets a little bit more intimate and personal. And I'm going to provide you the questions, but use them wisely. And after the 36th question, there is a little something else you have to do the study completely.
Oh, okay. And now she's showing us all the questions. Ah, okay. So what does this one say? If you could invite anyone in the world to dinner, who would it be? So this is interesting. Am I going to go through all the questions because I'm doing this by myself? Probably not. This is by a lady who is a therapist from the looks. Her name is Jessa. She's a licensed mental health counselor associate. Cute. We love that. She has interactive content on her profile to help you seek help when it comes to professional help around mental health, or even just working through relationship therapy as well. So that's helpful. I think if I were to rate her profile, I think we need more people like her on social media. And I think that it's wonderful that therapists are making the most out of social media. I don't see anything wrong with it. By all means, share your own opinion, please. But I think it's actually a really positive thing to bring therapists, psychologists, psychiatrists onto these platforms and have them make themselves more accessible in whatever way they can. I recognize that that is a profession that is very demanding on them. It's definitely a sector in terms of community support that is highly sought after in most nations, especially post-COVID, but just in general, as a society, there's so much going on. Mental health is important, and needing professionals who are in the mental health sector in any capacity are helpful as well, whether you're a nurse or a doctor or someone working in between. As who she is, very grateful she's on this platform. I think this is so cute as a content idea. I think it could be helpful for whoever needs it. I know now that I saved it without watching it, so I didn't know what was going to come forward. I have nothing more to say about this. I think it's cute and it will apply to whoever needs it. But for me personally, probably don't need to use it right now. So the next one's pretty interesting. This guy recently appeared on Diary of a CEO, which is a podcast that I love to watch. I put it on for Yoda to give him a bigger brain while I'm out of the house. He's so used to Stephen's voice at this stage, he probably thinks Stephen is his second mother. And he had this guy on a recent podcast talking about how to make yourself attractive to other people. It was something really controversial around like trying to seduce somebody, the art of seducing anyone you want. So the thumbnail on this TikTok says, "See through people's masks." So I'm kind of guessing that this guy, because I haven't seen that episode, this guy must be someone who is probably another clip from a podcast or an interview. And he's probably somebody who is really good at reading people. He's probably written a book about it. He probably studied psychology, or he's got like a sociology degree or something like that. He probably has a business behind him. And so they've given him this platform to share his opinion. Let's see what he has to say.
You look at the little things that people do.
Stop, that's not Robert Greene. I'm terrible. I know Robert Greene. I've read a few of his books. Oh my God. I didn't realize that was his face. Okay, I need to watch that episode, but we're going to keep watching this now.
If their desk is disorganized, if they're continually 10, 15 minutes late to a meeting, if they dress a certain way that's not slightly inappropriate or whatever, people give off signs in everything they do, in how they take off their jacket, in how they pour a cup of tea, something about their character and personality that they're not conscious of, but is revealing so many things about what's going on behind the mask that they're wearing. You're just not attentive to it. You look at the little things that people do. If their desk is disorganized.
Wow, okay, that's clever. So I'm gonna like it just because I'm biased. I actually do like Robert Greene. I feel so bad that I didn't recognize his face.
10, 15 minutes late.
Pay attention to the details in a person's character is what the caption says. And if we go back, it says see through people's masks. So I'm guessing that the idea behind this was that somebody asked, like, how can we understand whether somebody is narcissistic, psychopathic, sociopathic, and basically has intentions of using and abusing our relationship to them? It might have been something along those lines, right? How can we tell that someone does not have our interest at heart? And so he's highlighting in this cute little soundbite little things that you can do to pay attention to somebody's true nature through their subconscious activities. This is something we talk about a lot. I never get the chance to really delve into it in readings unless it comes out. But people can only mask for so long. I have my own rules when it comes to forming relationships. I give someone 90 days to show me who they truly are, and I pay attention to everything in that span. I pay attention to their body language, to their subconscious, to where they spend their time, to what they're interested in, to what they value, and I also just trust my gut and my intuition as well. So I think Robert is just trying to give little tidbits of information in digestible formats. This video was probably posted on Instagram as well. It's probably on Facebook. It's probably on YouTube, to try to kind of give you clues on how you can see if somebody is masking, and if they are masking a more sinister agenda, intention, or trait in terms of their personality. Do I think it's helpful? Yes. I think it might also be something that makes you want to click on him a little bit more, or search him and find other content. So it's clever from a marketing standpoint as well. And as a Capricorn stellium, I got to address the marketing. I do unfortunately have one more that I want to show you. I know I said I was going to do that ages ago, but I have one more that I want to show you on TikTok. I don't know if it's going to be amazing, but I haven't watched it. I just saved it before I got the chance to watch the whole thing so that I could blind react to it with you as well. So the thumbnail on this one says toxic. And if I can read it, there's a little caption. So this creator's replying to somebody's comment. The comment says, "Oh my God, thank you for saying this out loud. This includes family members." Let's have a look at what she's saying.
You're not insulting them. You're describing them. You're not speaking negatively of them. You're just explaining what happened. And you're not ruining their reputation. They did that with their actions. You're not insulting.
Okay, so this is actually the third time I've seen this video. It's an audio that is trending, so that does kind of, do I see, maybe I have a bit of prejudice towards trends. Sometimes they're helpful, and I use a lot of trends on my own content, so I shouldn't judge. I'm doing what I'm judging. But obviously that you gotta know what you're following, and if that audio is meant for you, it's meant for you. But I've seen people use these really helpful audios and just do some of the like silliest, goofiest things on top of them. So it's kind of like taking something helpful and healing and then just throwing it into the problem, you know? So I don't know. I think it's good to shine light in dark places, and that's what this audio does. The original audio seemed to come from a Dr. Nala, so she is a licensed doctor. We don't know much about her, but the audio says, "I stand with you." So is this helpful? Yes. I think this is a beautiful thing to stumble upon organically, especially if you need it. I think the algorithm will give it to you if it matches what you've been searching. This is one I don't really have much to say. It's short, it's sweet, and it's straight to the point. You're not insulting them, you're describing them. You're not ruining their reputation. They did that for themselves through their actions. So it can be a very simple yet empowering message for those of us who need confirmation that our actions are for ourselves and we're not liable nor responsible for other people's behavior, especially their negative behavior, in which deserves natural consequences. That's almost a very nihilist sort of opinion, but when you are an empathetic, kind, giving person who has people-pleasing tendencies, you do need to break it down as such so that you're not over-giving. All right, we're going to jump over to Instagram, Yodar, and we're going to see what I've saved over here. Let us have a look at Instagram. I've just got to open up my screen recorder again. Okay, I don't know how far back to go. Let's see. I've got a few actually. Oh, okay. Where do I want to start? The Spiritually Sassy Show. Let's watch that.
This idea of, oh, we need to save the planet. No.
I just realized it's Sad Simone. I'm probably saying that wrong, but he's iconic.
The planet is going to be fine.
I'm using the wrong pronouns. They are iconic.
What you need to understand is that, like, what we are doing is we are saving our species. The planet is going to exterminate us because we are not living in harmony with nature. And so this idea that climate action is somehow a charitable, selfless act is such a misnomer. Actually, it's the most selfish act that we can take. It's an act of self-preservation. It's an act of self-care. You know, the nature is not something separate from us. It is us. Wow. And if we want to continue to live here, then we need to learn how to live in harmony with it. This idea of, we need to save
that is very sassy. This idea of, we need to save the planet. No, the planet is going to be fine. What people need to understand is what we are doing is we are saving our species. That's interesting because I mean, I understand the logic, especially in terms of collective consciousness, collective energy. I understand that logic. I just think it's such a triggering soundbite, and there's going to be a lot of backlash from sharing something like that. Oh my gosh, especially at a time when people are so vocal and opinionated. I can see where they're coming from, and I think it's that idea of we all have a part to play. The way that I would personally expand upon that with my own opinion, I think that that person will probably have their own opinions, and they probably do expand upon it on that talk show. But personally, I see that as personal accountability. You have to work as one with nature, and that's a collective thing. We can't just rely on the governments, the institutions. Although we may blame them for the problem, we're all liable, we're all responsible. So very controversial, and I don't know if everybody would agree with that. I don't think I'm going to put a very strong opinion on that. I'm just going to say that that kind of content is very thought-provoking. It may not be what a lot of people are looking for on Instagram, but it definitely sparks conversation. So let us have a look at what's next. 30 Days of Hicks. So this is Abraham Hicks.
You want to be someplace that you're not, and you're aware that you're not. In your awareness that you're not where you want to be, what do you feel? Negative emotion? And if you're feeling negative emotion, what's your point of attraction? But what if You don't have yet in manifested form what you want.
You almost have to slow her down and pause every time she speaks, because she is a sage. She's got all these things that she's learned through decades of life on Earth. If she's still alive, I think she might have passed. And so she just rattles them off, like, obviously, and you're kind of like, wait a minute, what? She's like, I learned that in my 20s. You're like, I'm learning this for the first time. Don't just say that in one breath, Abraham. So this guy is doing 30 days of listening to Abraham Hicks's content, or Hicks's content in general, I think she prefers to be known as. And this is day 9. And she says this beautiful one-liner of, if you're not, I'm paraphrasing here, probably terribly, but if you're not comfortable with doing nothing and you start to feel negative emotions, then what is the point of attraction? If you can't feel comfortable in who you are when nothing is happening, then what is your point of attraction? How are you supposed to elevate yourself organically unless you are using the stimulus around you as distractions? And then at that point, is it even attraction, or is it just distraction? So it's this beautiful concept of really working on yourself. And it's also that Italian philosophy, is it al delce niente, the art of doing nothing? I'm probably really butchering that. I apologize to my European folk, my Mediterranean folk. But it's the beautiful art of doing nothing, the sweet, beautiful art of doing nothing, and being comfortable with yourself in that moment of letting yourself explore what it naturally wants to do, and of gravitating towards where you feel called to, and finding things to build upon in that moment as well, whether that's thoughts, whether that's interests, whether that's creative pursuits, or whether that's simply resting and recovering, if that's what you're meant to do. And that took me a long time. I'm now at a point where I really, again, need to be constantly aware of, am I overdoing it? Am I just distracting myself? Or am I helpfully guiding myself into new experiences? But yeah, she just said that like it just rolled off the tongue in 3 seconds. So we're going to keep watching.
But you're having fun on the way to what you want. If you're having fun on the way to what you want, then you're on that high-flying disc, and then on your way to what you want, you're having a whole lot of fun with a whole lot of other things that you want too, you see. But if you're bummed out about not having what you want, then what disc are you on? And if you're on that bummed out disc, there's grumpy and happy and sleepy and bummed out. So if you're on that disc where you just don't feel good, then what is your point of attraction? What's your emotion telling you? What's disappointment telling you that you're headed toward? Do you believe that you can control the way you feel? And do you hear us when we say your best chance of controlling the way you feel, of controlling your vibrational output, is by starting in the morning when the momentum is slow, and then getting it going in the direction of that which you're wanting? If you want to be someplace that you're not...
That's so clever. It's such a beautiful paraphrase, or not even paraphrase because it is her, but it's such a cute little soundbite of her showing you how to get more in control of your negative feelings and your negative thoughts. But it's just a typical Abraham Hicks style of just rattling it off like she's known it her whole life. So let me have a look at what else we have. There's a lot here, but I don't know what of it is helpful. Actually, this one's funny. This one's cute.
I just don't think this is like great for me. I don't want to do it. I want to go home. Like, I can't take the pressure of it. Don't you think any job interview... I don't know.
So, this one cracked me up because obviously we know now that a lot of the shows in the 2000s were extremely problematic. They were incredibly harmful for young women's mental health, mentality, how they see themselves and how they choose to grow. And I could see just a lot of psychological issues coming out of being on a show in the 2000s. And with America's Next Top Model, or Next Supermodel, whatever it was, there have been so many reactions to what was said versus what we know is socially and politically correct now. And this video just made me laugh. I just watched it and I was like, it's just a beautiful way of putting a probably very toxic moment in history with a very like classic spiritual lesson. When you hold your boundaries and walk away from things, people, and experiences that don't align with your purpose and passion. And she's just saying, I don't like this. This isn't right for me. I don't want to do this anymore. And they're trying to like convince her to stay. And I don't know if you've watched America's Next Top Model, but they would always find like really toxic ways of making Tara, if that's her name, appear to be like this godlike creature because of her status in the modeling industry of like, why would you do this to Tara? It's so disrespectful. And it was always about her. It was never about the girls' well-being. It was never about their careers. It was always about, well, Tara's a god, you kiss her feet, you know? And so the fact that she just walked away is not only like extremely controversial for its time, but it's so in line with that message. You just need to hold your boundaries, regardless of somebody else's status, their wealth, their claims of who they are in their circle. Those things are all material. Who we are should not be compromised due to somebody else's physical accolades, due to who they are at this moment in time. We die the same way. We get born the same way. These things in between may be important to us, but they shouldn't be points of worth, and they shouldn't push us away from other people in making us godlike figures of idols that are, it's needing to kind of stomp on other people like they're not worthy of just breathing the same air. It's just horrible. So anyway, I just thought that was hilarious. I laughed for so many reasons. Do I think that kind of content is helpful? I think it's appealing to a wide demographic of audience, regardless of how woke you are. It could be very funny for the mainstream, and I think it's very chuckle-worthy for a spiritually aware folk. That's just very... And then if you also are a 90s baby, or you watched America's Next Top Model, it's also funny as well. So let's keep going. This one is called Manifestation Technique.
Manifestation techniques so powerful they should be illegal. Part 1. If there was a way to hack the universe to give you exactly what you want as fast as possible, this would be it. Please be careful with this because it really works, and make sure to save this video before it gets taken down.
Ooh, okay. So I don't know how I believe what to think of this now, because he's selling it to us. So I'm immediately biased. I'm immediately feeling like he's coming from a trendy sort of just wanting to make myself as attractive as possible in this algorithm. But let's see if it's actually helpful. Let's see if the techniques are helpful or if they're harmful.
What I'm talking about here is a manifestation method called vibrational alignment. And this isn't just shit I'm making up. This method is based...
I feel like he's calling me out. This isn't just shit I'm making up.
...based on physics. Albert Einstein said, everything is energy, and that's all there is to it. Match the frequency of the reality you want, and you can't help but get that reality. So how does it work? Basically, it's like visualization, but on steroids.
Okay.
You use meditation to visualize what you want to manifest into your life, to feel the exact emotion that you feel, and to become fully embodied in the energy of that emotion. It can be difficult to do on your own, but it is so powerful when you're guided through it. And if you'd like to be guided through a vibrational alignment meditation that will make you absolutely magnetic to success, abundance, love, and opportunities, I'm going to be doing this live on my Manifestation Masterclass on Thursday.
There's the selling point.
If you'd like to join in, all you have to do is swipe left, tap here, and tap here to save your spot.
Okay, so do I think that's helpful? No. I don't think that's helpful because he didn't tell us anything. He just told us what he's selling. He gave us a little tidbit and then he said, you have to pay to get more. So as a marketing strategy, I'd probably give it a 6 out of 10 because there's no incentive for me to actually click on it unless I'm desperate. And even then, I'm guessing that he's probably charging an exorbitant amount. So once I get to the paywall, I'm probably questioning my decisions and going, well, what has he actually given me? He's used a very well-known figure, Albert Einstein, to back his theory, but he hasn't actually told us what he's selling. He's just made himself sound very elusive and mystical without giving us clear facts. So what he's offering is exactly what manifestation is. It's nothing new. It's nothing different. He's just claiming that he has something unique, but the concept is everything that manifestation already is, visualization. And everybody visualizes differently. Psychology breaks it down very well. Some people aren't visual people. When they think, they don't imagine things. They hear things, or they just sort of talk, and they might just imagine the words in front of them. So everybody's form of manifestation will be different depending on what you are, whether you're a visual learner or whether you're somebody who, when you think of thoughts, you just imagine words. So it's not going to be something that's very helpful. It's something that I would personally just scroll straight past. And I think that it's something that would trick a lot of people because it sounds legit, but it's just exactly what manifestation is, and millions of other people could offer you the same thing for free, to be fair, for free. We talk about manifestation a lot on this podcast. I'm not the only one that does it. You can get that for free, but you have to know what manifestation is for you and what visualizing is for you as well. You don't have to pay somebody $500 to know that. So let's see what is next.
We've all been hurt, and we're not all going around hurting people. You can maybe take accountability for your issues and be a good person and not hurt people, not hurt people. We've all been hurt.
Oh my God, I was not expecting that. I'm so glad we threw this in there, because we do need to spice it up a little bit. We've been watching a lot of podcasts and a lot of talking. This is a dancing reel, and you can tell it came from TikTok. So it says, POV, you just tried to justify your toxic behavior to me. And then she's just dancing to this quote about when you can be you and not go around hurting people and not hurt people. She's just dancing to it.
For your issues and be a good person and not hurt people, not hurt people. We've all been hurt.
I don't know why, that's just amazing. I love it. I think that it's such a good way of just making these ideas of having healthy boundaries accessible to everybody. You know, like, we're assuming that young people scroll on these apps and they're going to be shown this type of content, especially this type of content where you're just dancing. It's a cute way of being trendy and being like exactly what this app sort of promotes, while also promoting healthy boundaries and this idea of standing up for yourself and knowing and identifying toxic behavior. So I actually rate that. I give that like an 8 out of 10, because she's not trying to sell us anything, but it does make me want to go follow her. It does make me want to go to her page, have a look at other stuff, and just see what else she has to offer me. It's also very entertaining because she's amazing. The dancing. All right. This one's an interesting concept. I have a few here actually left, but I want to talk about this one first. I have seen this video, and I just thought that it was an interesting thing to stumble across. Again, if we're imagining that we're finding these videos at, like, I don't know, between 11 and way too late in the day to wake up early. So this would be something interesting to see. I don't know if everybody would watch it. I think a lot of people would scroll past it, but there's some pretty interesting concepts here.
You have to pay to live on a planet you were born on. And then, I mean, it's such a simple question, and it's haunted me ever since. And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? Ask yourself that question. Why do we have to pay to live on a planet we were born on? And who are we actually paying for the privilege of being alive here? Who made them the boss? Who put them in charge? I don't understand.
For me, it was interesting because being like an Indigenous person, it's like, yeah, like, why do we have to pay? And then you think about it even bigger than that. Like, we're all born here. We didn't choose to be here. I don't know. I think it's one of those things that it depends on the person. And for me personally, like, that was something that really provoked a lot of thoughts, because it made me bigger than all the titles and identity sort of claims that I have, even bigger than my cultural identity. Every person on this earth was born here, and yet we all have to pay to be here one way or another, either through land tax or buying a house and having to then continually pay rates, or through just the schooling system and having to pay to be a child. Like, it's crazy to be able to learn and be a functioning member of society. There's so many interesting social constructs that just, I don't know, like, some of it does make sense. Like, obviously we need doctors, we need people who can help us, but then there's a lot to it that it just baffles me. And it's an interesting thing, I think, for those who are interested in that. Do I think it's helpful? It's probably something that 90% of people would scroll past. So I don't think it's something that's going to spark social revolution. I think it will find people who are open to that idea and who are ready to kind of listen to something like that. So it's probably not helpful in that it's not something that's going to really inspire a lot of people, but it's definitely something that for me stopped me and made me want to watch it like 3 times and then just really think about it, because I always come from this standpoint of like, well, I'm an Indigenous person, like why do we have to do this? But actually no, like even beyond that, I have a strong cultural identity, but every person on this earth comes from somewhere on this earth. And through years of migration, we may have lost that strong cultural connection. That doesn't mean that we still should have to pay. Does that mean that we have to go back to 200 years of history and try to claim land over there? Like, it's a very interesting concept, buying and paying for the land that you live on. And I just found it a very interesting video. So we're going to keep moving forward. This one looks promising. It looks like another talking video. Let's have a look. We are still on Instagram, so this will be another reel.
Does not matter how much work that you have done on.
Oh, I remember saving this video before I watched it. I was intrigued because of the Australian accent. It's a male talking about spiritual concepts. That's quite rare. And I just wanted to see what he has to say. So this is a blind reaction.
Yourself. So please, everyone that's in the spiritual healing and self-development community, just let go of this idea that because of how much work you've done on yourself, how many Tony Robbins seminars you've been through, breathwork journeys, ayahuasca ceremonies, and years you've been to therapy and overly intellectualized your past and your traumas, does not bypass your human experience, where you will have insecurities at times, experience negative emotions, old patterns will resurface and re-emerge. It doesn't bypass that. That's a wall that's getting in the way of when it comes time for you to hold space for yourself and give yourself the love and compassion to be able to self-soothe and regulate your nervous system. You don't. Why? Because like, I shouldn't have to, because I've already done so much work on myself. It's like someone who's lost a lot of weight and gotten physically fit, thinking that because they've already done that, they don't have to continue a daily practice and the habits and showing up for themselves and this relationship with themselves to maintain that. It's like, oh, I've already lost 20 kilos. I shouldn't have to think about my nutrition and my food and my exercise ever again. It's a daily relationship with yourself that you have committed yourself towards. It's not something that you just, and it's done and it's fixed forever. It does not matter.
Oh my God, it's the Aussie accent that just makes that all the more enjoyable. I 100% rate what he's saying. This, for me, like if I was just rating it in terms of the content I consume, 10 out of 10. It's very relevant, and I think it's something that should always be relevant. Healing is non-linear, and again, it's a relationship with yourself. Every relationship takes work and needs constant regulation and monitoring. So I firmly believe, like when it comes to what he's talking about, it's just something that a lot of us need to be a little bit more aware of so that we're more compassionate towards ourselves. For me personally, when I first started really working on myself, I was very strict, and I tackled some pretty big issues early on that required a lot of regulation afterwards. I couldn't have continued to do that. Otherwise, I would have burnt myself to the ground with expectations that were far beyond my physical capacity. I was being very hard on myself to work through some huge childhood trauma, some huge inner wounds, and if I was that sort of strict from the beginning until now, I would have just severed all positive connections to myself. I would have seen myself in the worst possible way, and I would have caused more harm and more damage. I needed to dial it back and learn when to be more graceful and compassionate and forgiving to self, in that my routine had to become less than. Instead of being so active with what I was trying to fix, I had to go back into rest mode and rejuvenation mode and just give myself more time to be kind and compassionate, and recognize that a big part of healing is not doing anything at all except catching up on sleep, recovering, resting, and getting comfortable being alone and listening to yourself. A big part of healing is just getting comfortable with that inner voice and recognizing when that inner voice is trying to give you clues, and when that inner voice is trying to show you, well, actually this, well, actually that, and separating that from anxiousness and fear and doubt, because those voices are very, very different when you know yourself very well. So my healing journey has changed so much over the last 3 years. It's no longer looking like me going to therapy. It's looking like me sleeping in more because I need it, staying up late when I need it, being able to have a regular fitness routine because within myself I need that, but also switching it up and giving myself the chance to experience new things because I need that, and doing the things that I enjoy with a little bit of newness because I need that, and listening to when I need to kind of rearrange that again because my circumstances have changed. Sometimes I'm very active and sometimes I'm incredibly dormant because I just need to recharge and rest and be kind and compassionate and graceful. So he's highlighted that beautifully, and I think that's what a lot of self-help and social media gurus weren't highlighting in the beginning, and that's unfortunately where I found social media to be so unhelpful in the past, is because it felt like the algorithm was just force-feeding us these unhelpful gurus who were just saying you have to do all of this and you have to do all of that, and before you know it there's actually no time to listen to yourself, your own needs, and to tune into that passive quiet voice because you're so focused on getting through this daily list of things that you should be doing to be self-aware and self-focused. So it's very interesting that he's been able, and he's almost frustrated talking about it too, which made me laugh. I do think that that's very helpful. I just think that unfortunately the algorithm isn't going to show that to all of us. It's definitely something that we all need to come to our own conclusion towards, and it's something that I would hope any licensed professional would encourage within yourself as well, to just be more compassionate and kind. Now, this one is probably one of the last ones that I want to see. Dang it, I've got a few up here. Okay, we got 2 more that I need to show you. This one is like a speaking sort of conference. It's going a little bit back, like to the 2000s, so we'll have a look and see what's there, what they have to say.
A grocer or a general or a politician or a judge, you will invariably become it. That is your punishment. If you never know what you want to be, if you live what some might call the dynamic life, but I would call the artistic life, if each day you are unsure of who you are and what you know, you will never become anything. That is your reward.
Wow.
If you want to be...
See, I found this, it follows that typical algorithm of like the music in the background to kind of like make it sound really profound. But I was not expecting this man to be so woke. I know him from a lot of British shows. I think he's not from Top Gear, but he's been on a lot of British shows. And I was really surprised that he had such a woke, sort of disconnected, get out of the matrix response to this question. And it looks like the interviewer is even a little bit shocked. I don't know if she was expecting this kind of response. The fact that he's saying if you want to be something, then that is your punishment because it's your inevitable outcome, versus you being open to being anything and that being your reward. It's an interesting way of looking at society structures again and recognizing that achievements are just stepping stones to further expectations and further sort of development. It depends on your mindset, and it depends on where you see yourself and how you see yourself. And I know from my own standpoint that I'm someone that will always want to evolve and keep transforming. I've had so many lives already in this lifetime, and I want to continue that because it's helped really round me out as an individual, and it's helped me be more open to new experiences. And before my hard wire in terms of my brain and my chemistry starts to become too rigid and inflexible, I want to just continue to be adaptable, and I hope to never get stuck in the same thing for 30 years, because I do personally, maybe that's my Venus in Aquarius, but I do personally see that as a punishment. I see having like a 30-year career as punishment, and I don't think that that's something that a lot of people will relate to. I think a lot of people wouldn't see it that way. I think a lot of people are conditioned to want stability and to want that structure that a career can offer you, or that type of career can offer you. But it's interesting how he's just sort of looking at it all from a higher lens of, well, that's just the surface, isn't it? And that's not what happens when you pass. That's not what happens in the next life. That's not what happened when you first got here. It's all a product of our environment, and it's all conditioning belief systems. So he highlights that in a very aggressive way by calling these things punishments. And the ultimate reward is to try to sort of break free of that idea and to see it all as things that you can add to your character and your experiences. So it's not a wrong thing to want to be these things. It's just recognizing that they're all little parts that make up who you are. They're not your defining identities. And I think that's very harmful when you start to form your career as your major identity, as the big part of who you are, instead of yourself and your interests and your experiences and what you're aspiring to be as well. It says a lot about a person, in my opinion, when you break down how they sort of introduce themselves and what they aspire to be versus what they relate to who they are now. And sometimes that's circumstantial. You might, like I personally introduce myself differently depending on who I'm talking to. It's very hard to explain tarot reading as a profession, and it's very hard to explain sitting on the ground and talking in front of a camera for an hour and a half as a profession. So it does, it's circumstantial. I think it only ever really matters to self. And it's a very beautiful way of looking at your goals and the things that you set for yourself on a material level, and whether that does genuinely dictate the path you want to strive towards. So I really liked that reel. How do I rate it? Is it helpful? I think it's very thought-provoking. So I would say that it's something that would stir a lot of opinions, and a lot of people might want to watch that a few times to just sort of get their head around it. It's something that the trolls wouldn't like. I don't think it's something that a lot of people would want to hear. I do think it's helpful. And I do think that it's something that brings out a lot of inner dialogue. So yeah, I would rate that personally a 9 out of 10. But I think most people would look at it and go, it's probably a 5, because it's just depends on when it finds you and what you gain from it. Okay, so this one is a Jim Carrey clip. And I really wanted to see it because it does kind of follow the same sort of trend. But it is a really helpful message from what I could remember. So I do kind of want to play it as like our closing clip. It's not really a creator. It's just like an account that just kind of reposts a lot of things, which is a lot of what we've watched recently. But I do think it'll be a good closing. Oh, let's click back.
Happening to me ever since. As far as I can tell, it's just about letting the universe know what you want and working toward it while letting go of how it comes to pass. Your job is not to figure out how it's going to happen for you, but to open the door in your head. And when the door opens in real life, just walk through it. And don't worry if you miss a cue, because there's always doors opening. They keep opening. And when I say life doesn't happen to you, it happens for you, I really don't know if that's true. I'm just making a conscious choice to perceive challenges as something beneficial so that I can deal with them in the most productive way. Oh, and why not take a chance on faith as well? So that type of thing.
That's so cute. I just think, I don't know when it happened. I don't know if it's always been there, but him being so like profoundly insightful in one of the most people-pleasing places on earth, like Hollywood, has probably been the best thing for humanity in a long time. And it's sad that it looked like a mental breakdown when it was really just him getting frustrated with his restrictions and all the censoring and choosing to just sort of alienate him from that society by being so profound with what he's shared. I don't know, I really do admire Jim Carrey for his courage, because not a lot of people could do that in the face of people that they once admired, to stand up and say these things and to do it in a way where you just don't care anymore. Like you're just rattling off things that make you look crazy, and it doesn't even matter the context, because if people do care, they'll find a way to see it. I think it's beautiful how he just thinks he's not anyone special, and he shares it in a way where he thinks like what he's saying isn't anything special and he's no one special, and he just really humbles himself while also sharing some real gems. So that to me is a beautiful way of summarizing a lot of key principles when you look at different spiritual systems and beliefs and just spirituality as a whole. the idea of surrendering and letting go with manifestation, the idea of knowing that when one door closes, another door opens, and also the idea that life is trying to help you. We live in an abundant universe, and there are plenty of opportunities and possibilities, and we see that with science, we see that with astronomy, we see that in that when something is destroyed, another thing is created, and we know now that there are parallel sort of universes and that there are so many galaxies of opportunities and chance. So why is it impossible to believe that one door closed for you so that something else could open, and that it's probably for your highest good, and that the reason why you can't have what you thought you needed is because something better is on its way. So it's a very interesting message, and it was definitely the right one to finish on, I reckon. So please reach out about anything you saw. If something did provoke a question or a thought or a comment, do reach out, share your questions. I would love to bring them up with my next guest and we can talk about them together. The idea behind this podcast episode was to really get a conversation going and to share my own opinions because they are my own. I do hope that they provoke your own thoughts, and I really hope that you have your own opinions as well, and I'd love to hear them. So be sure to check out the hermittarotshop.com, the contact form to fill in feedback for today's episode. You could also reach out here on YouTube if that's where you're watching it. You could also reach out to my email, thehermittarotshop@gmail.com. That will be linked in the description boxes of this episode as well. I want to say a huge thank you to everybody for listening today on Apple Music, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon, Deezer. I've probably forgotten something there, but I'm kind of getting sick of saying the whole spiel. I should just have a card that I put up instead, or a sound I can play instead. But thank you so much to the listeners. Thank you to the viewers. And until next time, look after your beautiful selves. Goodbye.